You are going to run 250 kilometres, which is more than 150 miles, in 50 hours.
Yeah. So last weekend we attempted to run 1 metre for every person living with blood cancer in the UK, and that number is 250,000 people. We attempted to run that in 50 hours, running 5 kilometres every hour for 50 hours. So on the morning of the challenge, we're about 10 minutes prior to starting the first 5K, and people are starting to gather. You can definitely feel a real excitement about the place, that this is now the start of the challenge. And then all of a sudden I'm met by an incredible little girl called Alyssa. Now Alyssa is the first person in the world to receive a specific treatment for blood cancer, and she's now in remission.
Awesome work. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Seeing Alyssa at that start line on that Friday morning just gave me a real sense of hope and a sense of why we're doing this challenge. The fact that this little girl had created a banner, had come down to support, whilst she herself is still recovering from this illness, really gave me a sense of belief and a sense that we are doing something incredibly special together to help those people living with the illness. Before the challenge started on the Friday morning, I spoke to Maisie, Tom Youngs' daughter, and I spoke to Tom as well, and those two were incredibly upbeat. I think something that stuck with me throughout the challenge was that Maisie said she had a netball game and that she was going to run around like she's never ran before if I ran around my 5K loop. So on that Saturday morning, I remember looking over at the whiteboard that we had in the support team room, and we drew up a picture of her netball court. And I remember thinking, come on, if Maisie's running around, I've got to keep going on my 5K loop. So for that day, we kept turning up, we kept getting off that physio bed, going out there to run that 5K, because I knew that Maisie was running in a netball game. We said prior to the challenge that the purpose was to continue Tiff's legacy in raising awareness. Tiff was a huge advocate and supporter of people living with blood cancer while she herself was battling the illness. Whether it be through talking to people about her treatments, trying to educate people, she was always trying to do things for other people. So the purpose of the challenge has always been to continue that legacy of Tiff. So I spoke to a few people before the challenge, ultramarathon runners, people that have endured long distance events before. And there are a few commonalities from speaking to them. So one person said that you're likely to experience 4 speed bumps throughout that challenge. Now, those speed bumps could have come up at any time, whatever hour, during the run, after the run, before a run, but you are going to experience them. So those 4 speed bumps, I think looking back now, the first one of those probably came a little bit sooner than we expected it to. 8 hours in, we're around a marathon in distance, and I remember coming in from the run and I had to eat a bowl of Rice Krispies, and I remember looking at the Rice Krispies thinking, I can't eat this, and putting that bowl down and looking around the room, and there was a real good buzz and an energy, but you know, inside I was in a pretty dark spot. And I think what was so tough about that one was, you know, we still had a huge amount of the challenge to go. And having never been in that situation before, I didn't know if I was gonna come out of it, but also then what I was going to feel like for hour 10, hour 11, hour 12, with that not even being halfway through the challenge. With all the training and the planning for this, there was one thing that we couldn't control, and that was the weather. And at times it came down and it kept pouring, but at no point did anybody moan. The team just got on with it, and if anything, it probably picked us up. It gave us something to talk about, it gave us something to grit our teeth and really get stuck into, because we didn't know if it was going to stop, we didn't know if it was going to get heavier, but all we knew was that we had to do the 5K on that hour. Despite the challenge having a real serious meaning behind it, there were times where we really enjoyed ourselves, and I think singing and the music playing loud in the rain when it was really coming down was one of those special moments. People just got on with it, there was no complaining, and if anything, the rain probably added to it a little bit and gave us something to really grit our teeth and get stuck into. I think something that was quite special was how the support grew throughout the 50 hours, and people were honking their horns driving past. There was people leaning out their windows, shouting "keep going" and being really supportive. So I think the awareness of the challenge, definitely grew, and with that, we were growing the message for those people living with blood cancer. When night fell, it got very eerie, it got very quiet. The traffic had died down, and at times you could hear a pin drop. Running at night and the early hours of the morning was a real good time for some reflection. It's you and the road, and there were certainly times where my mind was drifting, and I had to bring it back and think about, right, why are we doing this? Why are we out here at 1 a.m, 2 a.m. in the morning? But I remember thinking that first night that whatever we go through for this first night, we're going to have it again the second, and we're probably going to have it a little bit worse the second night, because we're going to be over 24 hours in. But this is where the support team came to life, and all we kept thinking that first night was, get to the sunlight, get to sunlight, the sun will rise. And for the hours that we endured whilst it was dark, it seemed like an eternity, and that the sun was never going to rise, but it did. And when that sun started to come up, there was just another buzz around the place, that we'd got through that first night. Yes, we were going to have a second night to get through, but breaking the back of it, I think, was so important. This challenge would not have been possible without my support team. Doing these challenges is not something that you can do without a huge amount of support and ensuring that you fuel your body correctly. I would come in from the runs and the food would be prepared, whatever fluid we had to take was there ready, and without Simon being there, I don't think I'd have fueled properly. So as well as Simon from the nutrition department, I was very grateful to have the physiotherapist department here at Leicester Tigers with me for the whole challenge. The support and the care that I got from those guys and girls was incredible, because the nature of the challenge was that we were going to start to tire, the body was going to start to do things that maybe we haven't experienced before. But in the short time of the 15, the 20 minutes that we had between each run, they ensured that we did the necessary treatment to get us back out there for the next 5K run. The togetherness of the club and the group that we've got here at Leicester Tigers is incredibly special. And I was very fortunate to be joined by my own family for the whole 50 hours of the challenge. And I think there was some points in that challenge where I wasn't going to listen to anybody apart from my family. And I will forever be grateful for their little words of wisdom that they gave me throughout, their unconditional love and support that I felt during the whole challenge. I suppose the other side to it is there's some little jobs and bits that you know, no one should have to do, but your mum, your dad, your sister, they just get on and do it. And there were some real wet and rainy 5Ks. So mum was trying to dry my kit with a hairdryer. Dad was trying to sort my shoes out, trying to dry them in the short 15-20 minutes that we did have. And they were just trying to help however they could. Those guys were unbelievable, and I'll always be incredibly grateful for their support. Without the support that I had during the challenge, whether it was people coming to Leicester Tigers to run, to bike, to cheer us on, or people at home sending messages and donations through the Just Giving page, we would not have completed the challenge. And I can say that with some certainty, because there were times during that challenge where I wanted to stop, where we had such a short period of time between each run that if those people weren't there and I wasn't getting those messages, I'm not sure we'd have been able to continue. I think these are the messages you need. They're definitely the messages that got me through it. And it just proves that it was all worthwhile. Before the challenge, I'd sat down and I'd wrote a few things out, things that maybe I'd expect to feel like on that morning. So we've got through the first night. But I think what struck me more than anything was, despite having 15 minutes sleep on that first night, I felt really good. And we had an interview with the BBC at around 9:15 that morning. And I felt fresh, I felt good.
Epic challenge. Crowd are here. How you're feeling?
I said before the challenge, whatever I went through or I was going through for those 50 hours is nothing for what all those people that live with blood cancer go through every day of the year.
I am living proof that this is really important, and I feel that nobody should spend Mother's Day without their mum or their child, or anybody that's passed away because of blood cancer. There should be a cure, and I'm really thankful that everybody's donating, and especially for Will, who's doing this massive challenge.
What makes me, I think, most proud is Alyssa hasn't ran for over 2 years, and halfway through the challenge, she said to her mum that she wanted to try and run. So for the last 200 metres of one of the 5Ks, Alyssa got out of a wheelchair and she ran in for the final bit. I think seeing the emotion on her mum's face and seeing the smile and just the overall joy that Alyssa had from that 200 metres, it definitely inspired me to keep going. So there was one point that I'll remember for a long time, and it was around 1 AM on the Sunday morning. And we'd put a call out that Saturday evening for people to come and help and support on that Sunday morning, because we knew that although the finish was in sight, there was still a huge amount of running to do. And what happened was incredible. We had Leicester Tigers players, staff, supporters, people from outside Leicester Tigers came down, and we were running around Leicester at 1 AM in the morning, telling stories, jokes, singing. And I look at those people now in the eye when I see them walk past as we go through our everyday jobs. And I don't think anyone could ever take that away from us. We've gone through something and an experience that is incredibly special, and something that we'll probably never experience again in our lives. Something I didn't expect was the way that everyone came together. So there were people that had never met each other, but after that 5K run, they were talking to each other like they were best friends. And I think the nature of these challenges and these events really have the power to do that. And by the end of that challenge on Sunday lunchtime, I think people had made some incredible memories, but also some incredible friends for life. And I know I sit here now and I'm incredibly grateful for a huge number of people, and will be for a very, very long time.
Thanks, mate. Thanks. Yeah, no.
You've probably broke the back of it now. You've done the hard bit. Well, not the hard bit.
Well, I remember you said you said there's 4 speed ups. Well, we've had 3.
Yes. Alright, yeah.
So we've had one at 8, hour 8. We've had 1 hour 16, and we went at 1 hour 27. So there's definitely still one to come. When it comes, we'll do it. There became a point where we'd finished one of the 5k runs and the body was really hurting, the feet were hurting, the calves, the hamstrings, everything that you would expect to be hurting after 38 hours was pretty sore. And I remember coming in and I broke down. I was incredibly upset. My emotions, I was all over the place, and I knew that we had another 5k to go out for in about 15 minutes. And as I was sat there, I essentially wasn't sure that we were going to be able to complete the challenge at that point. So what we did was we came up with a plan B. So during this period, Tors, my sister, came up, and I remember her saying, "What is the most important thing about this challenge?" And it took me a little while, but on reflection I said, we have to cover the 250 kilometres because we have to cover 1 metre for every person that is living with blood cancer. So this is where I was incredibly proud of the support team. We had to adapt, and we decided that to complete the remainder of this challenge that we were going to get on the bikes, and that's exactly what we did. So we agreed that we were going to finish the last 200 metres of the challenge on feet, so running in. And I went over to Alyssa and I said, "Do you want to finish the challenge with me?" And I remember her looking at me with a big smile going, "Yes, absolutely." So that's exactly what we did. For me, crossing the finish line doesn't mark the end. There is still a huge amount of work and support that is needed for those people living with blood cancer. There were times we wanted to stop. There were times we wanted to quit, but we had to keep going. This challenge has never been about proving to myself or anyone else how much I can run, but rather continuing to raise awareness for people living with blood cancer.
I guess the big question is, would you do it again?
Yeah, blood cancer is not going anywhere.